Hello everyone, and welcome to our very first episode of Exploring the Mental Health Challenges faced by AAPI artists in contemporary Hollywood. I'm your host, Phan, and we're so thrilled to have you here today. This episode is made possible by AAMI in partnership with Asian Media Network. AAMI stands for AAPI Artists for Mental Illness, a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles, California. As CEO and founder of AAMI, I am proud to say that my organization aims to promote mental wellness with the AAPI community through the arts. Through our work, we aim to challenge the stigma and silence surrounding mental health issues in the AAPI community and to provide resources and support for those who are struggling. We believe that by empowering artists to share their stories and perspective on mental health, we can create a more inclusive and compassionate society that values mental wellness for all. Before we dive deeper into our discussion, we would like to extend a special thank you for our sponsor, Synergy Health BH. Their beautiful studios located in Beverly Hills, California, provides the perfect setting for our conversation today. Synergy Health BH specializes in empowering recovery for those struggling with substance abuse and other behaviors that hinders personal growth. Their unique approach includes 12 months of ongoing monitoring, offering the best chance for long-term recovery. Now let's begin by introducing our amazing guest and a longtime friend and mentor in the entertainment industry, actor Christopher Naoki Lee, also known for his role in AMC's The Terror and Fox Deputy, recently made his film debut, Dinner Party, which he co-wrote with his Greek alum, Daniel Weaver. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. It's been a minute. Today we want to talk into the theme of AAPI and marginalization. And you said that you had a lot of personal experience with that. And for almost, I think our friendship for like 6 to 7 years
Something
now.
like that, yeah. Wow, yeah. It's been that long?
You told me you were a child actor.
Yeah, I was.
I definitely look up to you and you have a lot of experience. So during this time for SAG-AFTRA and the Solidarity, how do you feel like the subject come into play?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's the sign of the times right now, right? This is, as you mentioned, like an unprecedented moment for all of us. The times might feel familiar when it comes to fighting for something that's like equal and fair wages and a livable life, essentially. But at the same time, there's so many different things that have changed, right, in this modern time that we're in when it comes to not just AI, but the access of information and how much we're actually there's so much connectivity that's happened. So within all of that, how do you now make this seminal moment feel like we're really grabbing something that's like that we absolutely have to get it, otherwise we don't know what the other side of that door looks like. And we had issues about it in 2008 when we had our strike back then with the WGA. But I think now, there's so many, it's a microcosm. I think Fran Dreshnell says such a great thing that it feels like what's happening with SAG and WGA, it feels like what's happening around the world. And so it's wonderful for us to be able to be in this moment, to be able to stand up, but it's obviously very hard. There's so many people that are struggling right now because of it, myself included. We have to figure out ways to stay positive, stay connected with people, but at the same time, understand the moment. And at the same time, understand grace, because everyone is going through this very differently. And as an AAPI, as an artist, that also means many different things, and I'm sure we'll go into that as well. And I just want to obviously say thank you for bringing me on for the inaugural episode, the first one, and to talk about something like this, because I do feel, and we've talked about this as well extensively, that it's something that we don't often talk about enough, particularly within our community. So to be able to really put that out there, it's very, very commendable. So I'm very excited to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. And we want to make it aware that for our viewers to know that this is completely for a nonprofit organization, 501c3. So we stand with the writers and actors. So this is something that we're doing to raise awareness. So Chris, talk a little bit about your personal background.
Okay.
And how do you identify as an AAPI artist?
I'll give you the Cliff Note version. I won't dive too deep, but I grew up here. I was born in LA, I was born in Glendale, born a little bit outside of Los Angeles, about 20 minutes in Woodland Hills. And in that world, that was at that time, kind of like a upper middle class community, mainly Jewish. So a lot of my upbringing was basically all of my friends were all white. I had, obviously a handful, plenty of other Asian friends as well, and I also went to Japanese school, so I had plenty of other ways for my culture to stay true and authentic. I ate rice every single day. My mom is a fantastic cook, so I had always great food on the table. So there were cultural elements that always stayed within me within the AAPI, but I also grew up, I felt like an outsider in many different ways, just because I didn't fully assimilate with my white friends, but I also wasn't fully assimilated with my all Asian friends. I always felt like I was kind of living in between. And that was something that I obviously took upon me when I did Dinner Party and I wrote that film. That was a lot of it was pulled from my own experiences of what it felt like to be micro marginalized, right? As friends, you don't really understand the dynamics of race until something kind of occurs where it's kind of hits you in the face a little bit. So more often than not, it was something where little things here and there indicated like, oh, there's an otherness that I'm going through, that I'm experiencing, that perhaps my other white counterparts are not. And I had to navigate that through friendship, through romance, you know, and again, and even within romance, within AAPI, just think 10, 20 years ago, what it felt like as an AAPI dating outside of their race. Obviously right now, times are a little bit more different and a little bit more open-minded, but how did that sort of change my viewpoint and how I viewed the world as well? So a lot of those things affected how I view myself as an AAPI.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I'm born and raised in Arkansas. So
Yeah.
I grew up in a predominantly
Yeah.
white community. So I was always very confused with my identity, and then moving to Los Angeles is obviously very diverse. So meeting people like you and engaging, so it's really interesting. So how do you think the term AAPI fits in when it comes to casting and audition?
I think it's great that we're including more. Obviously, like I think, 5-10 years ago, it wasn't even AAPI, it was just Asian American or Asian of some sort. And even then, they didn't want to specify if it was Japanese or Korean or Chinese. They just, Asian was it, and that was the blanket. So to be able to obviously include it and have more specificity, having Pacific Islander, and also even the description of the breakdowns to be as kind of specific as they can be, that's been great to see. I've had great sets and great productions where I would be casted as a certain, as a certain race, but then they would call me and they would ask like, hey, we just want to clarify, what's your race? What do you identify as? And they actually would change it, and they would change it to match mine. So I would appreciate that. At the same time, you can make the argument of like, why, right? Depending on, and we can obviously dive in and open that book, but that's a whole nother, a whole nother kind of book of worms as well. But all that to say, I think we have made good steps towards feeling like we're trying to find an authentic place for the actors to be in. But at the same time, there's always way more work to be done. I mean, look, you could just break it down simply by the fact of who runs the town in general, who runs the companies in general, who runs Hollywood in general. It's not Asian people, it's not Black people, it's not Hispanic people, we know that. So at the end of the day, what lens is it coming from? It's important for us, and I appreciate it when they are obviously asking the writers, they're asking the producers, they're asking the casting offices to make sure that there is more inclusivity and they are properly wording things so that it does feel like, hey, we're not trying to clearly marginalize or minimize you. I think that's a great thing. Are we doing great? Are we doing perfect? No, of course not. It's effort. Effort's important. That's the first major step. Question is at what point is it performative? At what point is it extensive and exhausting? And at what point do we feel like we hit it, like we're there? Because if we're there, that means that our social structures have also changed entirely too. And that's a whole nother conversation, right? It's not just the industry, we're talking about society, so.
And that's like really good that you brought up, because it was like Asian American and now it's AAPI. And I'm earning my doctorate, and I brought up this conversation to the panel about AAPI, and one of my colleagues, I don't like to assume, what she was thinking, but the way that she came off was very hostile. Why do you have to say AAPI? Why? And this is what I, said to her, that Asian American and Pacific Islander, which is a more inclusive term than simply Asian American. It recognizes that Asian American experience encompasses a wide range of ethnicity and cultures, including Pacific Islands, Hawaii, Guam, and Samoa. So using the term AAPI, it acknowledged the respects for the diversity and the complexity of the community. and rather than reducing it to a singular monolithic identity. And that's what I told her, and she was like, "Oh, okay, like that's really cool." But I find myself having to re-explain a lot to my colleagues, and I didn't think that I would have to really do that. But just even imagine how difficult that plays into casting and when it comes to getting certain roles or character. So
was that colleague white?
yes,
Okay.
she was white, but she told me the reason why she didn't, ironically, she didn't want me to use AAPI was because her boyfriend was from Hawaii. So I was like, I wanted to include more. If anything, I'm being more inclusive, but I have to understand. I guess she has some other sensitivity behind the scene with that that I don't understand.
Sure.
But one thing I do learn in my doctorate journey is that we don't assume other people's story just because we felt like we have enough experience, and try to be open-minded and having a conversation. So I appreciate her bringing that up at the panel, because I'm sure other people were thinking about it. Like some of my professors were thinking about the same thing, like why AAPI, why just AA? But yeah, so it's very good conversation to have with her. So I wanted to ask you, have you ever encountered any kind of racism or discrimination or stereotyping due to your AAPI identity? And if so, would you be willing to share your experience to the viewers?
Ooh.
A big sigh.
Where's the wine? No. It's funny because I can't right now off the top of my head think of like major moments that I was like, wow, that was so effing racist, you know? A lot of it was these like little moments, these microaggressions that we speak of, right? Where you just feel like you are not clearly welcomed. There was one production that I was a part of where we had a fairly big Asian cast and all that, and we would have PAs or we would have like production crews and stuff not knowing who we were, and not knowing that we were the first team and we were part of the main cast. And it does something to the culture of the set. It does something to the overall atmosphere and the kind of the positive mindset that a set would necessarily require when there's so many things that are happening. So there's things like that that have happened. And honestly, I'll go back to this too, like just even talking about like romance, And as a younger person, when for myself, I grew up on a lot of movies where it's a very Eurocentric, white-centric character who's the lead, and their lead female counterpart is this like gorgeous brunette, a gorgeous blonde or whatever. So I grew up in that mentality of like, oh, this is the type of woman that I would love to be with. And as I grew up, it's like you notice that those women didn't gravitate towards people who look like me. And so that was something that I had to kind of navigate and figure out like, oh, how can I then get my edge? What's the thing that I can do? I'll argue to say that some of the challenges that I faced, I've always found a way, I don't want to say always, but I've more often than not found a way to channel it into something. Like dancing was one of the few things that came up out of music, It was a very impulsive thing, and dancing was something that I gravitated towards, and it was something I was decent at. I felt like I could do okay, and it garnered attention, and it garnered attention from the people that I wanted attention from. So there were things that helped when it came to the struggles of like, the challenges that you faced. But at the same time, like there were many moments in my life where, and again, I can't compare myself to other people. I'm, like you said, I am not a monolith for a diaspora, but at the end of the day, like there were moments that I've absolutely felt like, oh, I don't necessarily belong in this place at this, I don't feel safe in this moment here. And that's something that for me that I had to figure out in that moment.
Yeah, I think in an actor's life, it's like very complicated, and the industry changes all the time, and it's hard. But I wanted to ask you, like, how do you support yourself and be able to help other actors that are feeling the same way that you're feeling, but they're a little bit more isolated?
Yeah. There's a few things I would say, and I'm actually going to even tie it back into the question that you just asked as well when it came to those struggles. Like, and something just came back to me as you were asking me the question, but for myself and I don't even have that difficult of a name, but I know plenty of other Asian people who have more complicated, more syllables, all that type of thing. And for myself, just even people like mispronouncing or whatever it is, or just misspelling a name or something like that, or even a character that I would have and they would just call me that character, not know that it was mine, whatever it is, right? Those are triggers for sure that I have gone through, and I've had to like really rewire my brain to let some of that stuff go. Because again, in that moment, it's like, what's time and place? What's the thing that's worth it right now to go after? And that's tying into the question that you just asked, is in those moments, what do you do to try to keep your mental health in check? I try to for sure absolutely, you know, we can talk physical first, right? Like whether it's taking your breath, taking a moment, taking awareness, seeing things that are around you. But you can also really kind of go through your own mental checklist, right? What is this moment asking of you right now? Mm-hmm. What do you want out of this moment right now? And what's the thing that's not making you feel safe right now? Kind of go through that checklist a little bit, and if you can at least calmly breathe and you're talking to yourself through that, at the very least you're in that moment deciphering the problem. This is not a one thing. I can't say that this is going to work for you every single time. Sometimes you might be so stressed that you got to go somewhere else and step away out of the room and just be by yourself. Sometimes that's what it requires. Sometimes you got to go to the gym and just work it out and run 5 miles. Sometimes you just got to maybe go out with your girlfriends and your boyfriends and just blow off some steam and just go dancing for the night. Mm-hmm. It's the little things that always, for me, and I will say this absolutely, always bring me back, that always find a way to level me out. And those little things change. And they could be anything on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday. It could be a nice bath. It could be a 45-minute walk with your dog. It could be a great moment to just sit in a room, in a podcast, and have a conversation with an old friend and just talk about how do we do better, you know? Those are the things that if you can find that and hold on to those every little moment. I remember an acting teacher told me this. It's like, she said that, you know, life doesn't happen like as an experience, it happens in moments, you know? It's just moment after moment after moment. This too shall pass, right? Mm-hmm. We're having a great moment right now, this is fantastic, it's gonna pass. Yeah. We're gonna go home and kind of might feel sad that we had this great time and feel sad once I'm home. That will also pass, right? So I think it's being able to be present and understanding that, you know, we live finite infinitely in a weird way. Everything is shortened, but it will go forever in a weird way. I believe that even past our physical lives, you know. So I think that's the grace that I try to find when I can.
Very well said. Very philosophical.
I talked y'all's
this
ear off.
This is amazing.
I'm gonna apologize to the listeners right now because
you should speak for my class.
Please,
like I would love that.
I hope they all just hit the 1.5 button on the speech. Just blast through that. Yeah.
I want to actually, you know, make fun of you a little bit because one of my staff read your response and we both busted out laughing.
My response.
Because you put in the comment, you said, "How do you fit in the Hollywood industry?" You put, "I like the pain." Why would you put that and then you talk like this? You put like the pain. So my staff Brandon was like, I think he doesn't want to answer that question.
Yeah, that's funny. That's so funny. I think I remember I think I answered that at like 10 p.m. or something. So it's like, I don't know if I want to go
I know. I'm sorry. It's a lot.
What was the question?
How do you fit in the where do you fit in the Hollywood industry? How do you fit in there? And you put literally, I like the pain. That was it.
Right.
I think you were just overwhelmed.
I can be a bit of a masochist. I'm not proud of it, but it's a part of me where this is the business that I know, and I've known this business for over 25 years. There's nothing that I would rather be doing. I love this. I love to be able to connect with people, to tell stories, to be vulnerable, to take a village and make something like out of nothing and create something. I think is a really beautiful thing. The pain comes from not the journey of making something, but the trials and the tribulations of getting there from other people's point of views. And that's what's hard about this business, right? Like this business isn't based on you like being happy with yourself, because more often than not, every validating point comes from somewhere else. whether it's from your audience, whether it's from your producer, whether it's from your financier, whether it's from your, a festival, an award show. And it's tough because then how do you then tell yourself you are enough, you're good enough, especially for someone who's just trying out right now and they don't have the accolades or the credits or the support system yet? How do you fight through that first really hard wave?
So let me ask you, how would you help those who just start in this industry, especially right now with the Solidarity? I'm sure a ton of USC students are from the arts getting into the industry, like what is happening? I can't audition, it's hard to even self-tape, for example, the money it costs. You know, acting, I always say this, it's kind of funny, but it's like, it's a very expensive passion kind of hobby, you know, and it's a lot of money and people don't understand it. Self-tapes, and then you have to have a casting front to your actor's access, and then you have to have a coach, you know, clothes, taking care of yourself. So what kind of advice would you give to those who's just starting out?
First thing I would say is, what's your, try to understand, sit down with yourself, have a nice casual conversation with yourself. Nice and easy. Don't put a lot of pressure on it, because the more pressure you put on it, the more daunting it might feel. But ask yourself, what's your threshold? How far do you want to take this right now, right? For me personally, I knew when I graduated college, I was like, straight to bartending, straight to serving. And I just knew it. I was like, I'm gonna live that life for a little bit. I'm not gonna like it. I'm gonna see my other friends who are working over at nice tech companies and doctorate, getting their doctorates and all that kind of good stuff. And here I am being like, all right, what can I get you? Can I get a line with that? You know what I'm saying? And I knew that I had to sacrifice that lifestyle for the end goal, right? So ask yourself, what are you willing to do right now? Can you go back home to your parents and just stay there for a little bit, save a little bit of money, and then kind of plan your attack? Or are you the type of person, and not to say that this is good or bad, but this is something that I did. I didn't like to be at home because I felt like it was too safe. I felt like if I went home and I saved money, yeah, you're saving some coin, but yeah, it's easy. It's easy to just have your laundry get done for you. It's easy to have a meal kind of here and there for you, ready to go. It's nice to know that you have a nice bed, always there. There was something always exciting for me when it came to not knowing whether or not it was going to happen or not. So I had to really push myself. The complacency level for me was very low. I had to keep going, keep hustling. So that was something that I chose to do. So again, what is that? What does that feel like for you? The next thing that I would say, just go through this is something that my manager told me to do, and I love this. He just said, well, what do you see yourself in 5 years, right? How do you see that? Write it down. Cool, great. In order to get to that place in 5 years, write down what you have to do every year to get to that, right? So, okay, you write it down, I gotta do this, this, and this to get to that place in 5 years. Great. Now write down what you gotta do every month for a year to get to that one place every year. Got it, okay, I'll do this. So I have to do this thing every month, and I gotta take this class, I gotta connect with this person, and then you break that down by week, then you break that down by day. You're not gonna do it by a T, but there's a guideline for you, clear put in your mind, at least for now, of what it could look like. It'll change. It'll change tomorrow, it might change in an hour, it could change in a week. The important thing is that you write it down and that you at least have a visual plan for yourself. Mentorships are important, classes are important, networking is incredibly important. I say this with you, I say this with people that I coach. You're doing in this business, and I think in business of life as well, you're always creating pockets of luck. These little pockets of luck of whether it's a job that you do, whether it's an audition that you do, whether it's a meeting that you have, whether it's a general or whether it's a networking meeting, whatever it is, every time you meet someone and you get to just you get to sort of blossom the well, you get to kind of add a little water to each other's wells. At some point, that well is gonna be used. At some point, you're gonna be in an audition room and that casting associate who loved you, but the vote didn't go your way, she becomes an executive and remembers you and says, that's the girl I want though. That's the pocket of luck that you created, but you don't even know it. You don't even know it. So the last final thing that I say is trust. You gotta trust yourself. You gotta trust that, I think it was Will Smith who said it, it's you gotta have just the most undeniable, almost hallucinating idea that you're gonna be able to do this. Because if you don't, you know this and I know this, there's plenty of voices out there that's going to tell you, you can't do this. you're not good. What are you doing?
And sometimes, from my experience, a lot of times that I doubt myself, whether it's like family or friends, and then I see my friends like moving on in life and having family and kids, and a lot of my friends that are actors, I noticed that they oftentimes don't do well with rejection. And rejection is part of our job as actors. So what if they tell you, hey, well, I'm going to get rejected for this. Like maybe I'll try it out for 3 years, and what would you say? Then maybe this industry isn't for you.
Yeah, rejection sucks. I commend actors, writers, and anyone who puts themselves out there like that. I give you so much love. Like even, and I know we'll talk a little bit about Dinner Party too, but like once that film was done, at any point, if anyone who made a film came to me and said, do you want to watch this? I'll be like, I don't even care. I'm gonna be like, good job, great job, you did it. It is incredible in this business how often people just talk about things. So the people that actually do it, it's a wonderful feeling when you're collaborating with people who are like-minded in that way. So all that to say, rejection sucks. There was a question in there. The question, I believe, was, how do I deal with it, or no?
How do you tell actors that they're like discouraged? Because most of the actors that I know end up giving up their dreams, and it's really hard. I think they had that momentum for a while, and then the industry changed, obviously, with the solidarity. They have to find ways to make ends meet. So they give it up. So would you be like, hey, it's too soon? Or would you be like, okay.
I will say the cold hard truth first, which is, if you come into this business and you say to yourself, I'm only going to do this for 2-3 years and then see if it happens, good luck. This business likely isn't for you, and you could be the one of 1% that goes to their first audition and they're just like, we've been looking for you, thank you. Great job. Congratulations, you found the one pocket of luck that was the jackpot, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, there's so much of this business that has to do with luck. So if it's the right time, right place for you, good job, way to go. For the rest of us, if there's a timeline for you that says like, I'm only gonna do for this amount of time, and it's really only like less than 5 years, it will be a tricky road. It will be a hard road unless you have a lot of money, unless you have a lot of resources, or you already have a great leg up when it comes to your networking. So I think my advice when it comes to people who say like, well, I'm just gonna kind of give this a go. If you're gonna go that route, God be with you, like do your thing, I'm not gonna stop you. But if you're gonna do that, please, like have a really good plan so that you really feel like in those 2 to 3 years, you did everything you possibly could do. Because like I said, that pocket of luck, it's exponential. It grows through time, you know? You can't quantify that in 2 to 3 years because you're also wanting to collaborate with the same people in 20 to 30 years. So at the end of the day, it's like you can be sitting here being like, well, I'm only gonna do this for a handful. When you look at the most successful people, it's longevity. It's the people who have done it the longest and have stayed around the longest.
And you have a lot of experience too, and you took risk and you made the Dinner Party.
I did, yeah.
And I would love to dive deeper into that conversation, but first we want to thank our sponsor, Synergy Health BH. So Chris, in a recent Deadline article, you mentioned your film Dinner Party is a personal story exploring the unspoken views of race, gender, sex, and class that lie beneath the surface of diverse friendships in America, and the repercussions that arise when they're exposed. Can you tell us a little bit about Dinner Party and how that all come together?
Yeah, so the film came to, I pitched it to my buddy, Daniel. So, you have the lens of racism, classism, and sexism all happening here, but at the same time in the background, there is this Brett Kavanaugh-style court case that's happening where a white prominent doctor is being accused of sexual harassment from a coworker many, many years ago. And in the final act, we find out the verdict, but at the same time, we find out that one of our male friends did something inappropriate to one of our female friends back in high school many years ago. So the question comes down to is how do you deal with something when it's something you watch on TV versus it happening in your own tribe, the sympathy versus empathy, the act of it, the act of what this friend did was clearly wrong, but the conversations that happen around it are gray, so how do you then navigate through those nuanced conversations? And it was something that I really gravitated towards because I love making movies and telling stories that have these types of messages, and this was back in late 2018. We filmed it in late 2019. The pandemic happened in 2020, so we had a little bit slower post-production going on, but we wrapped it up at the end of 2020, went through our festivals in 2021. We had a really great run. We were over in New York and Asian American International. We were in Savannah, SCAD. That was our big one as well. We were in LA. We were in a lot of different fun places. So had a great showing for our festival, and then finally got our distribution with Vertical, and then now it's out on Tubi. So
awesome.
Available for people to see now.
What was the most memorable moments you had on set?
We shot it in 4 days. I'm gonna tell you that. We shot a feature film in 4 days. So
all in Los Angeles?
All in Los Angeles, 4 union days. I'm gonna say that as well. So, because at the end of the day, yeah, I give a major shout out to all of my actors and the crew as well, everyone that was involved. But yeah, they all kind of came in, and it takes a village. Like everyone sort of pitched in and just rolled up their sleeves, and we did the thing. But I will say this, because we're talking about mental health. It was the first time, the day before production, it was the first time I legitimately had a full-on anxiety attack. A full-on, like crumbled to the floor, tears in my eyes, heavy breathing. And I give a shout out to my partner Imani for being there in that moment, because she was there to just get me through it. And that was something that was tough. But what's so fascinating about that is that day for me, and maybe this is the most memorable thing perhaps, because that moment taught me that ever since then, when I get to a moment that feels too much or overwhelming, I think about that. I think about me in that moment, because I remember how scared I was, how uncertain, and how is everything just gonna fall apart like a house of cards right now, or am I gonna be able to pull through? You had to blind faith, right? And what's funny was I had so much, like when I get anxiety, I get nauseous. I always feel like I'm gonna throw up or something. So I just felt nauseous the whole start to the week. And on my first day of set, just walking up to it, I was feeling it. I was like, oh man, I'm not feeling great. The minute I stepped on set, it all went away.
But this is your first
This is my first directorial debut film, yeah.
You never felt that way on any other sets that you've worked on?
Definitely not. I mean, sure, the stakes are high, but to me, it's like, yeah, when you're producing, you're directing, you're writing, you have so many moving pieces, and a lot of it's reliant on you and the decisions that you make. And they're going to be like, Chris, A or B, or what do you need to do? Like, what's next, right? And you have to be able to effectively communicate, but you also have to understand that everyone works differently. And at the same time, you have to find a way, like, how do I inspire people, but also get it done in the right amount of time? How do you make your day? So there were so many things that were going on, but the minute I stepped on that set, I was like, oh, I know this. And I trusted it, and I just let go, and I was there, and I was present. And so every moment after that, like when something feels too hard, that brings me back, where I'm like, you got through that shit, Chris. You made it through that moment. You're gonna be okay. So that's the resilience that it teaches you. And I think in some ways, now I might get in trouble a little bit for even saying this, but like in some ways, that's something that we've lost a little bit, in my opinion, like even for myself, like along the way, the level of resilience that we're willing to just hang on for. Because if we can hang on through that uncomfortable status or that state that we're in, the other side teaches you what you learned from that moment. You wouldn't get it otherwise. So that's something that I think is important for every young person, and for anybody, honestly, where it's like, I'm not telling you to go run through fire and just see how long your legs can just sort of not burn. But at the end of the day, putting yourself in a position like that allows you to rupture a part of you that then, like a muscle, regrows into something bigger. And that's how you grow.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris, because you invited me to the movie premiere, I believe, last October, and it was actually very, very good, like no doubt. It was I laughed a lot. It was very funny.
It's a drama, by the way, yeah. But there's a little comedy.
There's a lot of comedy.
It's a slice of life. Slice of life in there, yeah.
I had no idea that you had to go through that kind of anxiety. So thank you for sharing and being vulnerable for that. The last question I want to ask you is that, do you have any advice for other AAPI individuals or the broader community on fostering understanding, empathy, and solidarity, especially during this time that we're in?
Just to tell you, I've been doing, as a theme that we've been doing, I'm going to tie in from the last question to this question. empathy and trying to understand like solidarity and all that, like the film that I did and that I wrote and that I co-wrote and I directed had a multitude of cultures, of race, of perspectives. I knew that if I just did it my way and just from however I viewed it, that wouldn't be fair to what I believe the best perspective that I can find. So what I told my actors was like, I gave them as much autonomy as I could, as much agency as I could to be like, hey, does this line feel right to you? Hey, we're talking about this circumstance and we're talking about sexual harassment, we're talking about women's perspectives, and I am a cisgendered Asian male who's talking for you. I don't want it to feel like that. I want to feel like, hey, does this feel authentic to you? So I wanted to make sure that they had that type of power, to that type of collaborator.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. So when you said that, when you cast the actors, do you know them personally, or? I
knew most of them personally. I knew a few of them I did not. But in the end, like a great example is we had a first table read, and this was before we even casted all of our actors. We had about half of them casted, and we had a table read come in, and I asked everyone, I was like, hey, it's going to take about like an hour or so, but I would love it if you just stick around for about 15 minutes for afterwards, just to get your raw take. I would love to just hear, what you're thinking. And we did our table read, and I'm not even kidding, for the next 2.5 hours, we just talked afterwards. And in those 2.5 hours, I got to hear very clear, very specific stories that I felt like, oh my gosh, this is stuff that I can inject. I can kind of put a little bit of this in there. And that's the type of perspective that I very much invited with all of my actors. So that teaches me that type of empathy, of understanding like it's not about me. I have a vision, I have an idea, I have a direction. I'm gonna take this boat and we're gonna sail it into the horizon, but I cannot do it by myself. So that's something where that's the solidarity that I created on that set. On a bigger level, when it comes to AAPI, and the simple stuff, the stuff that everyone says, like, be kind to each other and talk to each other and communicate with one another. It's easy to say stuff like that, but start small. The world can feel so big sometimes, and one big action can just make you want to cuddle up inside of a ball in your bed and just not do anything.
We have all these technology, but we feel so far apart.
You feel so far apart, right?
After COVID and now the AI, it's just
look,
a lot.
I read quite a bit, and I know, from what I hear too, is that there's this contingent of people out there that feel very lonely right now, right? Because of, even though we have so much access to communication and information, yet we're one of the most loneliest that we've ever been. Why is that? And I think it's something that we've lost along the way, And it's hard because, and now I'm getting way esoteric, and I know we ain't got enough time to talk about this, but, at what point I feel like we've reached, or we're heading towards another side of the spectrum, and at some point we have to kind of recalibrate and come back. But at what point do we stop, right? And I'm talking about not only just diversity and inclusivity, but I'm also talking about us as a society and how we view other cultures, how we view cancel culture, how we view, like, are we not allowed to be human? Are we not allowed to have a human experience? There's a contingent of people online who are the loudest, and yet they are not the people that speak for us, and yet they're the people that we read the most. What does that say about us, right? So I'm not here to give you answers, because that's not what I do. I'm here to present questions and then conversation. But those are the things that I do wonder, where on a bigger level, it's like, so I say start small first, start within your community, start within the 5 people, the 5 average, you are the average of 5 people that you are around the most. So treating that community first, and then working your way up, finding those little things that we talked about. And in the end, I'm gonna say it. I hate to say it, but it's like the truest thing, because I have to remind myself so many times too, but just stop for a second, just breathe, and just be kind, Not just to the other person, not just to yourself, but like to every level of communication that you have that's out there. Just be a little bit kinder, because we're all going through something. We don't know what it is. We're not going to share it. And us as AAPI, we have a problem already when it comes to sharing our feelings and our emotions. So if you can find that safe space with somebody, or with a group of people, or even if it's just with a group, if it's through an acting group, or if it's through a community group, if it's through basketball group, whatever it is, finding that is going to be important. I think I went through this. Sorry, I'm talking your ear
Oh
off
no,
right
you're
now.
good. You're good.
I once had this really funny conversation with a few people by the fire. I remember like we were having like a bonfire or something, and then people were just saying like debating about, would you rather just be by yourself or would you want to like be with people? And a lot of people like, I'd just rather be by myself. And there's a part of me that thinks so too, but I said like, if there was nobody here on this fucking earth, like, would you rather be by yourself or would you rather find somebody by the campfire? Why do we, when there's a campfire, you sort of sit next to somebody?
Isolation is also part of trauma too. It's part of insecurity. Feel like you opened up to people and they hurt you and you just decided to be reclusive.
Right.
So very good, very good.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you so much for being part of this crucial conversation. And before we end, I just wanted to bring up the fact again that we can watch Dinner Party on Tubi.
Yes.
And how do our viewers find you on social media? Because I would love to have you back here because you're so good at this.
Love to. You can find me on Instagram at Chris Naoki Lee, as well as on, I believe on YouTube and Facebook and all that good stuff. I'm not on TikTok. I'm sorry to the Gen Zs, but it is something. I'm sure my dog will actually have an account at some point.
Okay.
I'm gonna have a little.
And your dog name?
My dog's name is Kobe.
And he is a
pit mix.
Pit mix.
He is the most beautiful little dude. Very, very friendly guy.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris, again. And we hope to see Dinner Party soon again. And I hope to, see you again sometime.
And thank you again for setting something like this up. I think this is so important. I'm so excited to see where this goes from here. It's exciting stuff. And again, we need it. We need it right now more than ever.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to our episode. And as we want to make note that we stand with the AAPI artists and those who make positive changes in the industry. So stay informed, stay engaged, and take care of your mental well-being. Thank you.